And we are here. Oh no, what is going on? Oh, there we go. Okay. Happy Monday, everyone. I just realized as soon as I hit go live that I left my drink in the living room. And I really don't feel like going to get it. So we're just going to tough it out. I'm one of those people who always has to have a drink with me. My husband made fun of me the other day. Hi, Steph, because I was going to pick up my daughter literally from around the corner, and I went and filled up like a big cup of ice water to bring with me because I have this like weird fear of being without food and liquids, and I always have to have something with me. It's a weird thing. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm sure that some therapist somewhere can figure out why I feel the need to do that. But anyway, I forgot my drink, so I might be a little bit thrown off. I was sick all last week. I caught whatever disgustingness was going around, and you guys all know what happens when the mom is the one that's sick. Everything falls apart. There are piles of laundry, there's dishes everywhere. It's awful. Stephanie, hey, I need a drink with me too, either a coffee mug or a water bottle. I always need a drink with me, always, no matter where I go. It's really, really upsetting me that I don't have it with me right now. I thought I was all prepared, but this whole week threw me off because I was sick for like a good 4 days, but you still have to function because mom life. And I'm finally now, yesterday, started to get back into the swing of things. And so we have that. So before we start and go any further, I think we need to talk about Dylan McKay. It's a very sad day for all of us that grew up in the 90s because Dylan McKay was the shit. I mean, who did not love him? I was one of the people who went to the mall down here in South Florida when he was making an appearance, and it was very anticlimactic because if you were there, you remember that he came out and then something happened with the stage. It was like some makeshift stage and it collapsed and fell and they rushed him off and then people were crazy. I remember there were rumors going around that people were cutting others with razor blades to get to the front of the line. The whole thing was ridiculous. I think we got locked inside a store with like the thing came down until they got everyone out and got him out safely. So we got to see him for like 2 seconds. We had t-shirts made and everything, but it's very sad. It's so sad to lose someone who was an icon in general or a person in general, but he was a very big part of our lives in the 90s. And so it's very, very sad. And he was so young. Hi, Stace. So things like that are just so scary. It just shows you how short life is and how you have to appreciate every single thing because it's just very, very sad and scary. So Dylan McKay, Luke Perry, we will miss you very much. All us ladies from the 90s. And I know he's on some show now that I don't watch. So I'm sure he's appealing to a whole new audience, but I couldn't not mention that because that was like filling everybody's social media feed today. It was making me sad seeing all the pictures. Okay. Oh, you know what else I wanted to talk about before we dig into like the topic of the day? Tell me if this happens to you guys. Whenever Jason and I decide we're gonna like watch a movie on demand or rent a movie, it takes us days to get through the movie because there are like constant interruptions. On Saturday night, I think it was Saturday night, we started Bohemian Rhapsody because we both wanted to see it. And between the baby waking up and Ava needing, it was just like back and forth and back and forth. And we didn't even get to finish the movie. And then we finished it last night with half our eyes open. I don't know the last time that I actually got to finish an entire movie when I started it. And I want to make sure that we're not alone and that we're not doing something wrong, even though I'm sure we are. But it took us 2 days, 2 full days to watch a movie that was less than 2 hours. So that's another exciting thing about parenting. Am I right? All right. So today's topic of the day is going to be playing off of an article that I reposted yesterday that I wrote for Pop Sugar about second babies when you have a second baby. So my husband saying boss baby. Yes, we call Sienna boss baby because number one, she's obsessed with the movie. So she watches it, and I'm not even exaggerating. Maybe it's on a constant loop playing like 3 to 5 times a day over and over and over again. But she is like the ultimate boss baby. Stace, we don't watch movies because of that. Yeah, I hear you. Stephanie, oh gosh, I can't watch a movie in one day, at least two, often three. All right, thank you. You guys are making me feel much better because I hear all these people, my peers, talking about all these great movies they see. And I'm like, how the hell do you get through a movie in one shot? Like, I can't even tell you, other than getting a sitter and going to a movie theater, the last time that we actually got through a movie. But we did get through Bohemian Rhapsody, and I loved it. I thought it was great. Sad, but it was really, really interesting. So I recommend it if you guys haven't seen it yet. Okay, so we're talking about second babies. So here's the thing. I remember when I was pregnant with my second, and I remember having all these conversations with my mom saying, like, I'm so in love and obsessed with my first child. I don't understand how it's possible to feel that way about another baby. Not that you don't love that baby, but I don't understand how it's possible to like replicate that. And she would always say to me, just wait, you'll see. Like, you think you don't have enough love, but you do, and you love that baby. And she's totally right. I do think there is something different with a first child because, and I wrote about this the other day too, you just, as a parent, as a first time parent, you have all of these firsts. You experience all these things as a first time mom, and the child experiences it with you for the first time. And so I do think there's a different bond. I don't think the love is stronger or weaker. I just think it's very different with a first child. You have this bond that's so different because you didn't go through it before and you're kind of learning together. And so it's really special. Stephanie, I don't like going to the theater because I can't sit through a movie without pausing it to pee. So I miss stuff at the theater. Yep, totally. I have that anxiety too. I have to like pee twice before I sit down because I'm afraid I'm going to miss something. I feel that. I completely feel you, Stephanie. So when I was pregnant and I said all those things to my mom about having a second baby, she was like, you're going to love the baby, I promise. And I do. I love her. But I will tell you this. Nobody, you know what nobody tells you about having a second child? They screw up everything logistically, like everything. I know people might joke about it, but it is so daunting. I wish someone would have prepared me more because yes, you know, you're going to have those newborn nights and maybe you'll have a baby with colic like we did. And you know, you have to go through those painful sleep deprivation exercises. But what you don't realize and that no one ever prepares you for is that you're like driving this little ship with your family with this first child, and you get to a groove and everything becomes manageable, and then you have this little life, and not only are you sleep deprived and not only are you going through that newborn phase, but like the beginning sucks because you're figuring out everything, and you have, hi Jessica, you have this other child who still needs you, but you have to give all your attention to the second one. And so then you feel mom guilt, and then you feel those postpartum hormones, and everything is just chaos. And I was not prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for that. Nobody talks about it. Nobody said anything about it. And I felt so much guilt, but I will never forget the very first night that we brought the baby home. I had my older daughter too. She was with us. And I was saying goodnight to her, and Jason was trying to get the baby to bed. And it's just, you know, that's at that point they're sleeping for like 3-hour stretches if you're lucky. And I was breastfeeding. So it was a disaster. And I remember my older daughter saying to me, you know, I'm not jealous. I love her so much, but she just needs so much attention. And, you know, you can't really stay in my room and read me a story. And my heart broke and I cried, and I know it was hormones, but I called my best friend and I uttered the words verbatim. I said, I think I just fucked up my family. I think I just fucked up my family. Marissa, I'm so pretty. Thank you. I feel haggard right now. Jessica, mom guilt doesn't go away when they turn into toddlers either. No, it doesn't. Mom guilt is real. And I really felt like I screwed up the entire dynamic. It didn't mean I regretted having another child. It didn't mean that I didn't love her, but I just felt so out of sorts because I didn't know how to make the two worlds work together. And on top of it, my first child is my child with my first husband. And so there's the divorce logistic and the custody logistic. And I just felt like I couldn't get it together. I felt guilty for taking away time from my older one. She was my world for 8 years before her sister came into the picture. And she was so used to having my undivided attention. And then we got into a groove where it was me and her and Jason, and we had our dynamic, and it just felt like unmanageable, not just from the dealing with a baby unmanageable, but dealing with two children at two different sides of the age spectrum, two different, completely different lives going on. And I felt lost. And I feel like it's one of those things that nobody talks about. And I talk a lot about how people don't always tell the truth about parenting, and we sugarcoat things. And, I try obviously to keep it real, but it is a struggle. And I didn't realize how common it was, as silly as that sounds, until I wrote that article. And again, like it always happens, and it's my favorite part of it, but the floodgates open and all these people were messaging me privately and saying, oh my God, I felt the same exact way. And I'm so glad that I felt like I was a horrible person. So Stephanie, oh my gosh, I forgot about how our second messed up our schedule. Our second is about to turn 11. Yes, I remember being surprised that we had such a routine. I didn't realize it until it got screwed up. That's the thing. I think you think as a family, oh, we'll just figure it out. And you do, you figure it out, but you don't realize how much adding another life. And maybe it's different, I don't, we have two and that's it. There's no more, shops closed. I don't know what happens. I've heard when people have multiple, and Stephanie, you're a good person because you have more than two children. I've heard that it's much easier to go from like 2 to 3 or 3 to 4, but taking that jump from 1 to 2 is the most dramatic and drastic jump, because you are going from this one life who has had all of your attention, anything that you have to give, you give to that child, and now you have to split that time. And I imagine that would be much harder than doing it with multiple children, just because by that point it just becomes chaos, and you're used to the chaos as a mother in general. Jessica, it's kind of like Seinfeld with the worlds colliding. Someone's always got the short end of the stick. I still haven't mastered balancing it, and I'm 2.5 years in. So Jessica, I don't think you ever master balancing it. And that's what I'm learning more and more as a mother, and I'm trying to be like kind to myself about it. I think we screw things up all the time. I think we make mistakes all the time. I don't think we ever have it together. I think we have, at least for me, I have one like solid day where I'm like, wow, I am killing it today. The laundry's done. I packed, snacks in the backpack and everything's like where it should be. My bed is made. My kids are clean. They don't have food all over their faces, and I feel like I'm slaying it. And then the next day I completely just take 10 steps backwards. So I think that's totally normal. Yeah, the rest were fine to transition into the family. Oddly, number 4 was the easiest to bring home. But I've heard that before. I've heard that when you have that second child, your world is rocked. You're trying to figure out how to manage this family of multiple kids. And then anything after that, it's just another mouth to feed, another body to clothe. But it's not that same dramatic shift when you add that second baby. And I really think that had I had more conversations with people who are willing to admit that tremendous sense of mom guilt they felt when they look at that first child who they know is getting shafted in some way, whether it's time, attention, whatever it is. I used to be able to take her to dance once a week. I used to be able to take her to the park. I used to be able to take her to the library. When the baby was born, I had to have a sitter do a lot of those things or take turns. You can't do it. You can't do it with kids that are 8 years apart who have completely different needs. And I felt so guilty until I started to say it out loud. And then other people would be like, girl, that is totally normal. I feel the same way. And so you feel it normalizes it. And that's one of the reasons I think it's so important as mothers and as parents to have that open dialogue, because how do you know that someone's not experiencing the same exact thing that you're experiencing, and you're keeping it bottled up thinking that you're a bad mom or a bad person because you're having these feelings? Because we're so conditioned to think that if we say anything negative about being a mother, that it means we don't love our children, and that's just bullshit. So let's get over it. Let's start to be a little bit honest about it and admit that it sucks bringing a second baby home, where it just screws up your entire routine, and eventually you get into a little bit more of a groove, but it's never the same. It is never the same situation. Even to this day, I'm 2 years in. My older one is 10. She is like very self-sufficient. I don't have to do a lot for her, but I want to be around her and I want to spend time with her, even though she's like pushing me away because she's hanging out with her friends and texting and doing all the things that 10-year-olds do. But I think that there's no magic bullet to balance it. And I think every day we just have to do the best we can and not be so hard on ourselves. And I wish someone would have had those conversations with me, but I think we don't want to scare parents. We don't want to make people feel overwhelmed, because pregnancy and labor and delivery and all that stuff is overwhelming in itself. But it really needs to be talked about more, because I feel like it would make people feel more at ease. I also remember having that aha moment about a different bond with my first and second. Yep. Now with 5, I have a different bond with each of them. I love them the same amount, but we all have different relationships. And that goes exactly to what I said before. I will never have the bond with the baby that I have with my big one. for a lot of reasons. She's my number one. I practiced how to be a parent on her. I celebrated successes with her. I made mistakes with her. She is my guinea pig, but she was my constant, because after I got divorced and she was, almost 3, it was her and I for a few years, figuring stuff out. And then Jason and I started dating, and then Jason and I got married, and Jason and I met when she was 4. But so she was still little, but it was just us for that couple of years. It was us against everybody. And so we have this bond that I will never have with the baby. But then I have the bond with the baby since I never got to be home with Ava. I was working full time at a very demanding corporate job. I was out the door working 9 to 5. I had a full-time nanny. It was a very different life. Now I'm working from home. I'm setting my own hours. I get to take the baby to mommy and me. I never got to do any of that. So Stephanie, I agree with you. It's a completely different bond. And I do believe that no matter how many kids you have, the relationships are totally different. And it's different when they're boys and girls also. Jessica, no one really tells you that beforehand. I had a really rough pregnancy, and my mom guilt kicked in before he was even here. I think that's so normal. We need to talk about mom guilt more. Nobody talks about it. Meredith, my situation is slightly different because my age gap is 12 years, and my 12-year-old, now 13, is my fucking rock. I don't know how women have newborns without an awesome teen nearby. She's my sanity saver, and her and the baby have a great relationship. One of his first words was sister. So Meredith, I completely identify with that. Ava was 8 when the baby was born, and she had never showed an ounce of jealousy. It annoyed her sometimes when I had to stop doing whatever I was doing to tend to the baby, but she was so good about it. She has been protective and obsessed with that child since the day that she was born. She would, in the beginning, be like, when's she going to talk? When's she going to walk? I wanted to know when there was going to be a little more interaction, but I'm right there with you, Meredith, because she was such a good helper. She wanted to feed the baby. She wanted to basically do everything but change diapers. She has no interest in changing diapers, but she wanted to do everything else. And she would constantly tell me I was doing stuff wrong or she didn't like something. So I was so worried about having kids from 2 different marriages so far apart. But it really ended up being pretty incredible because at 40 years old, I delivered my second child 2 weeks before I turned 40, and it's exhausting. I'm so tired. And so I have this helper who is able to help. I can actually say to her, watch the baby. Can you feed the baby? Can you get this? And it's not like a toddler you're trusting to do something. So it is pretty incredible. And then to see that bond is amazing too. And I had something similar with my brother. My brother and I are 5 years apart. And my mom always said I never acted like a sister. I always acted like a second mom. I wanted to do everything for him. He was like my little doll, my little baby. And so I get it. And I think it's such a beautiful relationship to watch. And it'll be interesting to see how that progresses. My older one she has asked me so many times in the past year if in a couple years she can get bunk beds for her and her sister in the same room. And I'm like, you guys don't share a room now. You are 10 years old. If you think that in a few years from now as a teenager, you're going to want to be sharing a room with a toddler, you're crazy. And she's like, no, Mom, I want to share a room. It's really cute. Stephanie, your girls are the same age gap as my oldest to my youngest. They still bond. That makes me happy because most people say that. And every once in a while, I have a jerk who likes to make some stupid comment on something I post about how, they like to be like, oh, mine were like that too. Now they hate each other. And I'm like, great. Thanks, Debbie Downer. Meredith, Kendall was in the room when Thomas was born, and that was amazing. Major life moment I'll never forget a second of. You are I couldn't have done that with Ava because it would have grossed her out. It's amazing when people do that. I give you credit for doing that. I didn't want anybody in the room. Nobody. I love my husband. Obviously, I wanted him there, but I would have been fine if the doctor was like, it's just going to be you and I. Christina, I'm 20 weeks pregnant with my second child, and I think my 6-year-old is way more excited than I am. All I think is, oh my God, how is it going to change our lives? It's so nice to hear you and other moms speak of the mom guilt. It's there even if you don't want it to be. 100%. And Christina, it's going to suck. It is. It's going to suck in the beginning, but you kind of figure out a new normal. And you have to be easy on yourself and don't give yourself a hard time if you have those feelings. It's going to happen and it's totally fine. Lindsay, my 8-year-old, I think your comment got cut off. So it was just something I wanted to talk about because I didn't realize, sometimes when I post or when I write things, I kind of assume that a lot of people are very open about some of those. And so some of those topics. And so when I get all these messages or comments where people are like, thank you for putting this out in the open, thank you for voicing this, I don't realize how bottled up so many of us are about sharing these things. And so it makes me happy when other people are willing to share their stories too, whether it's in comments or publicly, because I think these conversations help us all realize that we're like living the same life to some extent. Lindsay, my 8-year-old sneaks into my 2-year-old's trundle almost every night. I love that. I actually told, my little one is still, the 2-year-old's still in a crib. We're probably not far from her jumping out of it, but we're like holding off as long as we can, because like that's another thing, your life is over when your child is out of the crib and not contained. But I keep saying how we're going to just pull out the trundle in my older one's room and she'll just go in there, hopefully, and sleep in there, and not end up on our bed, because we do that thing now where she wakes up at like midnight, 3 o'clock in the morning, and she's in our bed because both of us want to sleep and we just can't deal. And I did the whole cried out thing with my first one, and I will never do it again. But I won't share my opinions on that. That is your own decision to make. Okay, so that's my topic of the day. Let's jump into the vent sesh. This is super fun. So my vent sesh is brought to you by a viewer. And this is something that if you guys actually have things you want to send my way, I will do this whenever you send stuff my way. So this is the anonymous question I got. Somebody sent me a message telling me that they have a child who constantly wants to like be around and play with their children. The child's a little bit older than their kids, and she feels like the child's not a good influence on her kids, like talks about things that aren't really age appropriate. It's just not, just not a good influence in general. But she loves the parents. And so she's torn because she doesn't know how to handle it. She doesn't want the older one, the child around her kids. She doesn't really want them to start having that relationship with her regularly together, but wants to maintain the friendship with the parents. So I'm going to turn to you guys and ask you what you would do in that situation. So type me some answers of how you would handle it. Like, 'cause it's very delicate. It's a delicate situation. And we have all, if you have school-age children, you have all been, and if you don't be a liar, you have all been in the situation where your kids will meet someone at school, whether it's preschool, elementary school, whatever it is, and they want to play date or they want to hang out, and you hate the kid. The kid sucks. The kid is like just ill-behaved, disrespectful. You can't stand them, but you know you have to kind of play nice because it's someone in your child's class or play group or sports league or whatever it is. And it's uncomfortable because you don't want your kid to go back and repeat everything to them, but like it's a very difficult dynamic. And then it's even worse if you really like the parents, because let's say you want to like go out to dinner as couples with the parents, or you're like friends with the mom and you want to have coffee and lunch, and the topic of like getting the kids together keeps coming up. How do you handle that? Because what I do in that situation, if I'm being really honest, is I'll just keep making excuses that are usually pretty real because we're so busy and I only have my older daughter every other weekend when it's weekend time, and so I don't like to share her with anybody a lot. So I would like to know how you guys think she should handle the situation of being able to preserve that relationship with the adults, but keep the kids away from each other. What are your gems of wisdom that you can share? Meredith, we had this situation, we don't hang out with them, with our kids, only adults. Okay, so have you ever had the conversation though with the adults? Like, do they know that you're not a fan of the kids being together, or do you just kind of brush it off, not make plans with the kids, and just keep making adult plans? I need to know. Allie, exactly. I have a couple that we love, but the kid is crazy, and I feel like I feel like a bad influence. Yeah. So it's really, really hard. I've had this from the time that my kid started preschool through elementary school. There are always those kids that your child wants to be around that like you hear the name and you're like, no, I will buy you a puppy. I will buy you a puppy if you never play with that child again. And then you have the parent calling you going, oh, we should get the kids together. And you feel like such a bitch because you're like, oh, okay. It's so uncomfortable. I wish there was a way that we could be honest with each other about it. But the reality is that when you're talking about someone else's kids, it is such sensitive and delicate territory because we love our kids, we love our children. And even if we can admit the flaws that they have and know that they're not perfect, to hear someone else tell you that they don't want their child hanging out with yours because your kid sucks, for lack of better words, is a very hard pill to swallow. And as much as I don't mind being blunt and speaking my mind, that is one area where I always take the path of least resistance and try and just make excuses because it sucks. So if any of you guys are dealing with this or have dealt with this and you have advice for our anonymous viewer, you can comment like some of you are. You can DM me if you don't want to put it in here because you're afraid that someone will see it and catch on that you're doing that to them. But this is, this to me is a community where we all can learn from each other and help each other. And this is one of those really tough topics that is kind of hard to navigate. I don't believe that there's a right or wrong. I think that you have to do what's right for you. So I'm very curious how you guys would handle this. So please share with me. What else did I want to talk to you guys about tonight? What I'm loving. Oh, what I'm loving. I'll show you guys. I want to show you guys this. So I've said this before. I don't know if you guys use Fido at all, this brand. It's in a lot of beauty supply and you can get it online. I actually do, in the interest of full disclosure, I do write for this company. I do some content for them. So I get a lot of stuff from them, but I've used it for years. This is probably my new favorite. And I might have shared this with you guys like when I first started doing these, but sometimes I didn't know this, but you're not supposed to like shampoo and condition all the time. So sometimes I just use shampoo and then I think there's no way my hair is going to be soft. It's like so processed from being colored and highlighted and stuff like that. So this I spray on after when it's wet and it's not expensive. And it is so, your hair is like butter. So try this if you're looking for something like that where you don't want to use conditioner that weighs your hair down all the time. You put it in when you get out of the shower when it's wet and leave it in. It's amazing. Meredith. It's some of our friends circle from high school, small town life, and my BFF and her husband are also in the group, and she feels the same way. I don't know if the mom gets it. She's slightly flighty. We occasionally run into them at joint birthday parties or the big community events, and that's that. So then you have it easy because it never comes up, and you're very lucky. Stephanie, that's really tough. I don't know what I would do. I probably would do similar to what you said and avoid them when I can. I hate to avoid anything. I feel like you should always deal with things head on and be honest because then there's no mincing words and there's no room for miscommunication. But with this one, I avoid the shit out of it because it makes me physically uncomfortable. Lindsay, oh yeah, don't attack the baby bear. Mama bear will lose her shit. Excuses are the way to go. Okay, I'm glad we're all on the same page here. Meredith, when are we talking about this? Team Dylan or Team Brandon? We did. I talked about it at the beginning. I opened the show with Dylan. It's so sad. Allie agrees with Lindsay. Yeah. So I think we're all in agreement, anonymous viewer, that if you would like to still hang out with the parents, you kind of just have to make excuses of why their child can't come over. You're busy, you're not home, the kids are doing homework, someone's got a runny nose. You just got to keep the wheel of excuses going. I don't know what else to tell you. That was my initial gut instinct when I got the request to share this, but considering that everyone's agreeing, I feel like it's probably the way to go. Meredith, I'm late to everything. Welcome to Mom Life, my friend. All right, 2 more quick things and then I'm going because tonight is a very exciting night. If you watch The Bachelor, tonight is the fence jumping night. Colton jumps the fence tonight. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know what to tell you, but there's a dramatic moment where he scales that fence like a ninja. So I'm really excited to see that. That is happening. And if you guys have not caught it yet, I don't know if you've seen, but I've been sharing on Facebook and Instagram my videos with my fellow hilarious moms for our Real Housewives of Instagram. We dropped a teaser a while ago. We dropped episode 1 last week, and we just are in the process of filming episode 2. And I want to know if you guys like it. I'm getting really fun messages from people that they're into it, but I would love to know what you guys think if you're watching it. They're really short. They're like 2-minute videos. Everyone has 2 minutes. Like watch it while you're on the toilet. I don't care. I won't be offended, but I think you'll like it. If you are, let me take it back. If you are into any of the Real Housewives and you love the ridiculous, mindless drama, see, this is why I need my drink, that comes along with it, you will love it because it's a parody on all of that. And I feel like we are touching on all of the really funny things of Instagram that we all make fun of. Jessica, you've never seen The Bachelor? I love The Bachelor. I love The Bachelorette. I got my husband into them a couple seasons ago, and he is just as into it as I am. And as a matter of fact, ladies, I'm too late to do it this year, But if anyone is interested in doing like um, the fantasy football version of The Bachelor and Bachelorette, I am all in. Let's talk about it. Let's do it for the next one. Meredith, so hilarious. I want you all to get on Andy Cohen. I know. We keep tagging him, hoping that someone will see it. And at least they'll share it because I think it's funny. You all should be bartenders from an episode of, yep, I agree. What would happen live? Can you imagine? That would be awesome. We are going to film a reunion too. You'll see a reunion as well. Allie, love your Real Housewives on Instagram. Too cute. And I got to see other mom bloggers. Love. Yes, they are awesome. It's if you're not following them, they're all on Facebook and Instagram. It's Andrea Doesn't Give a Duck, Andrea Lavoff, Big Time Adulting, Humor and Wine, and myself. And they are all hilarious ladies. Everyone's got a different personality and brings something different to the table. So if you haven't, scroll back. They're both on here, Facebook and Instagram. The new one will be coming hopefully this week. So sit tight. And I love the viewer mail portion of this. So if you guys have questions, they can be anonymous or not, whatever you guys want, anonymous or not, send them my way and I will use them for the vent sesh portion of these. If you guys have stuff that you want to discuss with other moms, we can always do that. The floor is yours and open, and I love it. So thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I am off to watch The Bachelor. If you are watching it, just started a minute ago. You guys have a great night. Have a great rest of the week. And I will catch you guys all next week. Thanks for joining. Bye.